Hello everybody, it's Hater. Merry Christmas and welcome back to another Destiny 2 build video. 'Tis the season of giving, and to mark the occasion in today's video, we're going to talk about the return of the fabled Eyasluna hand cannon and give our enemies a gift they'll never want to give back. Before we get into that though guys, as per usual, if you enjoy the build and it helped you out, leave a like on the video, leave a comment down in the comment section if there's anything you want to see me cover in the future, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel so you'll be up to date whenever a new PvE build video goes out. But with Eyasluna, the hand cannon from Destiny 1, returning as both a stasis energy weapon and being able to roll the new perk Headstone, this opens it up as a top tier weapon to synergize with the stasis subclasses, mainly because whenever we get precision kills with it, a stasis crystal is then gonna form on where the enemy dies. Now this is really important because that crystal that we just made can proc almost every aspect and fragment in the stasis subclass. If we remember, Bungie just released kind of a pseudo nerf for the stasis turret, matching its cooldown to be the same as the ice walls, which at right around tier 1 discipline, that's gonna be 3 minutes long. We don't want that. That's why with Eyasluna and a build I put together, we can just ignore Bungie's nerf and print as many stasis turrets as we want. For the build, you're gonna need a few things. One, which is the obvious, an Eyasluna with the perk Headstone. And if you haven't gotten one yet, well, you can earn it from the final boss in the Grasp of Avarice dungeon. But before you even say, Hater, I don't have a team, I'll never get one, shh. I literally made 3 solo builds just for that dungeon, all of which have really simple to earn weapons and builds that will let you steamroll right through it alone. I promise, it's not that hard. As for the roles I recommend that you look for along with Headstone, what I personally enjoy having on mine is Unrelenting, which will start healing you after you get multiple kills with it. Of course, you have the option of looking for something like Rapid Hit or Outlaw if you're not a fan of the reload speed. Just farm one that you're comfortable with. That's all that matters for this build. For the aspects and fragments we're going to be pairing with this, the aspects are going to be Bleak Watcher for the ice turret, and Glacial Harvest so freezing enemies will spawn stasis shards that we can pick up for melee energy. I'll explain a little bit more on why we're using Glacial Harvest in a moment. But now for the fragments, this is where it's going to get interesting. Because as I spoke about earlier, the crystal that Headstone spawns will synergize with almost every single fragment in the game. Meaning the fragments that we're going to be using are all going to focus around the crystal. The first one being Whisper of Fissures, which will increase the overall damage radius on the crystal when it explodes. This is insanely good because already the crystals hit pretty far from the buff Bungie gave to stasis crystals recently. This fragment on top of it is just basically going to turn it into a stasis Warmind cell if you want to call it that. But to allow us to print stasis turrets, as I mentioned before in the intro, we're going to be using the fragment Whisper of Shards, so whenever we shatter a crystal, specifically the one Headstone creates, it'll give us right around 5 seconds of improved grenade regen. On paper, that doesn't sound as good because when those 5 seconds are up, that's only roughly 20 to 30% of the grenade back. But something that we have to keep in mind is that there is already going to be a stasis turret out when we have this grenade energy coming back to us. That stasis turret is then going to freeze enemies and give us free headshots with Eyasluna just to repeat the same cycle. Which, speaking of frozen targets, that leads us to the next fragment, Whisper of Rending. This is going to allow our kinetic ammo weapons, aka Eyasluna, to deal more damage to stasis crystals and frozen enemies. The reason we use this is because without it, it takes Eyasluna roughly 2 to 3 shots before it can shatter the crystal it creates from Headstone. When it's equipped though, however, it makes it one-shot the crystal every single time and makes it super useful for going from one crystal to another, creating a somewhat flow of headshot, shoot, crystal, headshot, shoot, crystal. For the final fragment to top the build off, we're going to synergize with Glacial Harvest and use Whisper of Conduction to suck all of those stasis shards into us whenever we get near them. Moving over to the mods that make the build, this is where it gets fun because, as I said before, there was a reason why we're using Glacial Harvest, and Elemental Shards is that reason. This basically counts all of the stasis shards we create as stasis elemental wells on top of them, but it's only going to count one of them every 10 seconds. Pair that with the mod elemental charge, and now we've got 2 stacks of charged with light every time this mod procs. At this point, that's honestly all you need. Literally. Anything else at this point just adds on to the build for whatever content you want to bring this into. But because Stasis Warlock, more specifically Stasis Turret Warlock, is so prominent in endgame content, we're going to make an example build that can be used in GMs, the Master Difficulty Dungeon, raids, and solo lost sectors. So moving over to my Warlock, for the exotic, I'm using the Eye of Another World to lower the overall cooldown on all of my abilities. Any exotic that synergizes with Stasis Warlock works here, stuff like Verity's Brow, Mantle of Battle Harmony, the Stag, all of that works. This is just what I'm using. On it, I have it as solar with elemental charge at the end, and both a linear fusion rifle and hand cannon ammo finder, which helps with my loadout. Over at my arms, I have them as stasis input elemental shards at the end of it. Then I'm using the champion mod Unstoppable Linear Fusion Rifle so that my linear fusion rifle, which in this case is my Reed's Regret, will unstop champions in whatever content I'm doing. And because I'm using Ariana's Vow, which innately anti-barriers champions, I have this space open to a fastball or whatever I want for it. The other reason that I have this as stasis is because if I'm not fighting any champions or doing any content involving champions, I can take off the Unstoppable Linear Fusion Rifle and slot in 2 grenade kickstarts, which will immediately give me 30% of my grenade the moment I throw it. On my chest piece, I have this as Void, and I'm using Font of Might at the end, so whenever I get an elemental shard proc, it also adds 25% more damage to my Eyasluna and Reed's Regret. Then next to it are 2 resist mods that I can swap out to whatever I need them to be. Over at my boots, I have these as Void, and specifically, these are Artifice boots that you can earn from the master version of Grasp of Avarice. You don't have to have these. I do strongly recommend farming them out because they're really good to have with the extra slot at the end for seasonal artifact mods. Mine have protective light near the end, so when my shields break, it gives me a 4x damage resistance for about 10 seconds. To use the bonus slot I get for it being Artifice, I have the Artifact Linear Fusion and Fusion Scav in it. Then I'm using a hand cannon ammo scav for the Ariana's Vow in my loadout, and better already next to it so Orbs of Power instantly start healing my shields. Then finally on my Bond, it is also Artifice, but that doesn't matter as of now because I'm saving it for Witch Queen. I have it as solar, and in it I'm using Particle Deconstruction for my Reed's Regret and Resonance Siphon, so whenever a champion gets stunned, it gives me right around 25% ability energy for all of my abilities. Overall, guys, that is actually going to be the build for today's video. If there are any questions, please leave them down in the comments and I will get to them as fast as I can. I hope you all have a Merry Christmas and a wonderful New Year. I'm going to catch you all in the next one. Bye bye.